I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as one of the greatest protests for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American, whom symbolic shadow we stand today, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree sent down a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves, searing the flames of the withering injustice and bringing on a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro is standing in the lonely island of poverty, while standing in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro has been languished in the corners of American society while still in exile in his own homeland. So today we've come to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architect of our republic wrote those magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note in which all Americans was to fall in. Yes, black men as well as white men. This promissory note guaranteed all inalienable rights of liberty and the pursuit of happiness to all Americans. But America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as people of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro a bad check. A check that has been marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. And we refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come back to cash this check which will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hollow spot in America to remind America of the urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the gradualizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time for America to make the promises of democracy. Now is the time for America to lift itself up from the dark, desolate valley of segregation unto the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time for our nation to rise from the quicksand of racial injustice into the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro legitimate discontent shall not pass until there's an invigorating autumn of justice and freedom. 1963 is not an end, it's a beginning. And those who thought the Negro just needed to blow off steam and will be content will have a rude awakening if America goes back to business as usual. And there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of this nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking of the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high planes of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to generate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as a Negro is a victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodgings in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the city. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro basic mobility is from one smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating, for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote, and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote for. No, we are not satisfied. And we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness is like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that the unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our nation's cities. And know that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Amen. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, and even though we face the difficulties of today, I have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted. It's an American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation shall rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. And we'll hold those truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream today. This nation will rise up and live out the meaning of its creed. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down at the table of brotherhood together. I have a dream that one day the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that one day, down in the state of Alabama, with its vicious racists, whose governor lips are dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, shall one day be transformed into a situation where every little black boy and every little black girl and every little white boy and every little white girl shall be able to walk hand in hand as sisters and brothers. Yeah. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and every mountain shall be made low. The rough places shall be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall reveal himself, and all flesh shall see it together. This is my hope. This is my faith. That I go back to the south with. With this faith, we'll be able to hew out every mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we'll be able to transform the jaggling discards of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we'll be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And this will be the day, and this will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee. Sweet lands of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died. Land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom reign. And let freedom reign from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom reign from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom reign from the hiking Alleghanies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom reign from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom reign from the curved slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom reign from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Let freedom reign from Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. Let freedom reign from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom reign. And when this happens, and when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village, every hamlet, from every state, from every city, we will be able to speed up that great day when all God's children, black men, white men, Jews, Gentiles, Protestants, and Catholics, we'll be able to sing and join hands in that old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last.